Think about this. They're cutting FBI funding that protects your community while boosting their own security in Washington. That's the double standard Rep. Lou Correa just exposed in a brutal exchange with Kash Patel, who's trying to justify Trump's reckless budget cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Director Patel. I want to focus a little bit on domestic terrorism. We have a graph here, data up to 2021, but as you can tell, domestic terrorism is on the rise. Nation, our citizens under threat. We saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk, 2 assassination attempts on the president, school shooting, Minnesota last month, and closer to home, just a couple of days ago, Huntington Beach, peaceful vigil for Charlie Clark, infiltrated by neo-Nazis who essentially made the local individuals attending that event fear for their safety. All of us know that a lot of these domestic attacks are by lone wolves, but yet they do leave clues, social media or elsewhere. Director Patel, you're it. You're the thin blue line. The FBI, your job to protect our citizens back home from those that would harm us. You have to find the needle in the haystack. Takes a lot of work, a lot of resources. Talking to my local sheriff this morning, who said they're concerned. Federal cuts to local grants that help them do the job. Then, of course, let's not forget about other threats that are coming before us, like high-tech fraud. Local senior recently was talking to me about a text she had gotten, a demand by the IRS to send a payment immediately, or the IRS agents were on their way to arrest this individual. Pretty gutsy stuff by folks probably from Europe, North Korea, Russia, China, people, okay, going after those precious savings our senior citizens rely on. Yet the president's proposing a budget cut of $500 million or more to your organization, the FBI. You've said that that'll essentially equate to about 1,300 less jobs at the FBI. So I'm going to ask you essentially, what is it that we can do to help you do your job? Little concerned. Friday Night Lights. One of the events I love to do on Friday nights, go to the local high school football game. Sit there at the stadium and you always say, what if? What if? You're the thin blue line. Can you do your job cutting $500 million from your budget?
Thank you, sir. I think we are doing our job, and the distinction is with the budget that we have, we are flexing more resources to the field. California is receiving the largest FBI plus-up of any state in the union due to that plus-up. They're not getting a reduction. No state is getting a reduction. Every state is getting a plus-up. And so I'm utilizing the money that we have to first plus it up. And the empty vacancies that we have, those haven't been filled in years, not under my leadership.
Here's my concern. You're going to do well, you're doing more with less, is what you're saying. Yet we're about to vote on a budget that has $88 million more to protect members of Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. There's a contradiction here. Back on Main Street, we're saying you can do more with less, you can protect them with less money, yet here in Washington, we're saying we need more money to protect members of Congress. It's a little contradiction here, or maybe, sir, you ought to talk to leadership about coming in with your management style to protect the Supreme Court, Congress, and the administration. Otherwise, it's essentially a hypocritical situation. We need more protection, yet folks on Main Street can do with less.
My concern is folks on Main Street. We also were, I think we received over $300 million in the big, beautiful bill, and we're also receiving pots of money from our interagency, so this sort of $500 million cut isn't entirely accurate.
You're still getting cut $200 million plus. You're still moving your agents to do ICE work, so you are leaving a lot of bases uncovered. And I'm not going to be argumentative with you, Director Patel. I'm just saying, if that thin blue line does not hold, people on Main Street will pay the price.
I agree with you, sir.
And I just look forward to working with you, because I am very concerned that these kinds of budget cuts are short-sighted, especially when my local sheriff calls me and says, we need more support, and we're looking at budget cuts.
I'll work with you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield time.
Mr. Chairman, I have another unanimous consent request.
Lou Correa's question wasn't complicated. It wasn't partisan. It was something every American can understand. Can you protect the public after $500 million is cut from your budget? And when FBI Director Kash Patel tried to spin his way around that question, Correa didn't let him. Because this wasn't about politics. It was about priorities. What Correa did here is what oversight is supposed to look like. He put the so-called thin blue line in front of the American people and asked the question no one in Trump's orbit wants to answer. How can you claim to keep people safe while cutting the very agency responsible for that safety? Patel's response was pure evasion. He said the FBI was flexing resources, that no state was losing funding, that California was actually getting a plus up. But then, when pressed, he admitted there were cuts, and that agents were being reassigned to immigration work under DHS. That's not flexing, that's hollowing out. Let's remember what Correa was talking about. Domestic terrorism is on the rise. Neo-Nazis showing up at vigils, school shootings, foreign cybercriminals targeting seniors with scams. These are the real, everyday threats Americans face, and they require intelligence, coordination, and manpower. Yet the same administration that's telling the FBI to do more with less just added nearly $90 million to protect members of Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. That's what Correa called out as hypocritical. Because if Washington believes in security, it should start with everyone, not just the political elite. This is where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Patel and Trump's allies keep claiming they're defending law and order, but their budgets tell another story. When the cameras are off, they're defunding the very institutions that actually investigate violent extremists and protect communities from real danger. And the result? Agents pulled from field offices, vacancies left unfilled, and investigations into domestic terrorism that stall because there aren't enough people or resources to pursue leads. Meanwhile, billions flow into pet projects and political optics. That's not law and order, that's selective security, safety for some, risk for everyone else. What's even more telling is Patel's insistence that the FBI had already received money from the Big Beautiful Bill. Think about what that means. He's talking about Trump's own partisan spending package, the same one that funneled money into ICE, private detention contractors, and surveillance programs while cutting the FBI's budget for community-based crime prevention and counterterrorism. That's the trade-off. Less protection for neighborhoods, more power for political policing. Correa's tone throughout the exchange mattered. He wasn't grandstanding. He sounded like someone who actually talks to sheriffs, teachers, and families back home. He talked about Friday night football games, the kind of place where parents worry about what if. That line hit home because it humanized the stakes. These aren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They're real people sitting in real stands, wondering if that thin blue line will actually hold when it's needed most. And the truth is, it won't, not if loyalty and politics keep taking priority over safety and service. Patel's evasions might sound bureaucratic, but the consequences are concrete. Fewer agents tracking domestic extremists, fewer resources investigating cyber scams targeting seniors, fewer partnerships with local law enforcement to prevent violence before it happens. Correa's final warning was simple. If that thin blue line doesn't hold, people on Main Street will pay the price. That's not rhetoric, that's a reality check. So let's call this what it is: hypocrisy dressed up as efficiency. The same leaders who tell you America needs to be tough on crime are the ones gutting the institutions that actually fight it. And when Kash Patel insists the cuts don't matter, when he defends redirecting agents to political work instead of public safety, that tells you everything about where his loyalties really lie. It's not to the FBI's mission, it's to the man who put him there. This hearing made that clear. And Rep. Lou Correa did what members of Congress are supposed to do: demand straight answers, defend his constituents, and remind this administration that law and order means protecting people, not power. If you believe in real public safety, the kind that protects families, not politicians, then don't let this story fade. Subscribe to The Liberal Lens for independent coverage that holds power accountable. And if you want to help keep this work going, join us on Patreon, because real oversight doesn't come from the people in power. It comes from the people paying attention.